So I've just gotten back from an external handyman job, and there is one thing that always plagues my mind and scares me whenever I leave my beautiful workshop to do work elsewhere, and that is leaving something behind that I will need. Today I lucked out and I didn't have to come back for anything, which is nice. However, you don't need to be on the road doing jobs to have the same anxiety. So what I want to do is see how much of this stuff you actually need, and we'll break it down into beginner, intermediate, and advanced DIYer to see what you can get away with to cover most jobs. Because honestly, there are a ton of tools you could have, but you don't need them all. Okay, beginner level. Let's start with what are basically essential for handyman type work. Now, this is a really tricky sort of thing, and why it perhaps breeds anxiety is because there's no one typical job. Let's just be clear, straight up, I'm not touching painting, plumbing, or electrical, because once you start going into those three things, then you'll get into specialized tools, or quite frankly, needing someone else to come do the job for you, for the ones here in Australia that require a license. No, we're looking at stuff which you don't have to be a handyman helping other people. I'm just talking about doing DIY things around the house, commonly for yourself, and when people find out you're handy, possibly for your neighbors too. So let's see what we can put together in a kit for the beginner level DIYer. Oh, I will point out there will be a list down below. Yes, it will have affiliate links in it, but it will also help you source some of these things if you think they're a good idea and you'd like to pick them up for yourself. Number one, first thing that you should always get that you probably hadn't thought about getting, PPE. Let's make that number two, a bag. Now, if you're at home and you're just going to be walking between the garage and wherever it is you're doing the job, you don't need one. But the second you are leaving, having a dedicated bag, it doesn't have to be a fancy Makita one. Having said that, I got this for free when I bought some Makita tools. But having something that is sturdy and strong, because tools get heavy, is definitely going to be high on the priority list if you're going to leave your workshop. Regardless though, back to the real number one, mask, gloves, eyes, ears. I actually have some fancier versions of these, which we'll see in the future, but if you're doing any sort of work with power tools, you need this. If you're doing anything that creates dust, you're doing this. If you're doing anything with moving parts or tools, you need this. And occasionally, if you're picking up some rough things or you got to clean up where your hands might be at risk of getting cuts, then gloves. Just to note, I don't use these with power tools, but they do have their uses. So make sure you pick up some PPE. You can get disposable masks. Honestly, these ones will pay for themselves. They last a very, very long time. Get yourself a good silicone mask, not one of those RZ rubbish things. While we're speaking about dust, get a dust pan. Your wife/partner/client will thank you for it. You should always be carrying one of these with you, and they cost absolutely nothing. We are, of course, not explaining the usage of tools, just what I have and why I have them. Right, let's get into the smalls. Small little hand tools. There are so many different things that you could have. These are the ones that, regardless of the job I'm doing, are always in my kit. Obviously, if you know what the task entails and you know it's going to require a specialist tool, then get it for yourself. What I'm trying to put together here is a base level that's going to cover the vast majority of small odd jobs that you are going to encounter. That is the only saw that I bring of the non-powered variety. It is a little flash-cut Japanese pull saw. You can get them relatively inexpensively. They can cut through a 2x4 if you need them to, but we'll have better options for that later. The number of times you need to hack off something small is a lot. Cutting dowels, cutting bits that are overhanging. That little cutting tool takes no weight and is fantastic. This one is possibly a maybe. It is a chisel. It is a beta chisel. It is a cheap Irwin brand, just from the big box store, but I always have at least a chisel that is reasonably sharp coming along for the ride, cutting off blue plugs that you put into walls, scratching off bits of things. Look, it's going to get abused and it's not going to be fine joinery, but having a sharp chisel, it's always helpful. Came in handy today. A pair of pliers, absolutely essential. We'll use them more than you know. A file, bit of an unusual one, but it costs absolutely nothing again. And you're going to run into metal constantly. Screws, nails, things that just need to be rounded over a little bit. And having a nice file is definitely in my kit. Hammer goes without saying. Gonna need a hammer for the claw if nothing else. A scraper. This is a nice thick paint scraper. used it for paint literally today, but also just scratching away on surfaces. Leverage slightly, that will help you out. Phillips and Stanley head screwdrivers, flathead and regular. We'll get more advanced with these later, but you'll get away with just the 2 standard screwdrivers for the vast majority of your needs. A shifter. And one that you should really consider, because it helps no end, is a combination square. So these can act as depth stops, they can act as squares, funnily enough, or you can take the whole thing off and it becomes a metal ruler. It also has a 45 angle on there. In terms of measuring, this is my go-to measuring stick. Quickly followed, of course, by your regular old tape measure. 8 meters for me, probably even a bit of overkill. 5 is probably fine. Let me dig into the front pocket. This is sort of my measuring and marking type area. A notebook, pencil, and a sharpener, or a pen if you so wish. Something to write down measurements, jot notes, make sketches, shopping lists, whatever you need to go and pick up from the store that you forgot, because we're not going to cover doing that on this video. Having something to write on is absolutely essential. A little spirit level. This one has the advantage that it is actually magnetic. But if you're going to be doing picture frames, doors, windows, just about anything that is going to look wrong if it's not on level, that is great. I nearly didn't include this one because I don't use it very often, but I live in a fully brick house, so finding studs is not high on my priority list. This is a fairly fancy one from Craig that has a laser on it as well. You don't need that. A magnetic wall stud finder, if you are going to be doing work on plasterboard places, is basically essential, because you're always going to need to be screwing things into walls, shelves, very common DIY. And blue tape. This has 1,000 uses, as you could probably tell by the fact that I need more. Marking things where you don't want to mark things. Put the blue tape on and write on the blue tape. Drill stops depths. Putting up a line that you want to put on the wall to scribe where something needs to go. This can be a clamp as well, an extra hand. Blue tape I always have in the kit too. Not too many consumables in here, but that is probably number 1. Speaking of consumables, if it doesn't move and it should, WD-40. If it does move and it shouldn't, polyurethane glue. Now, I don't actually have wood glue in here. This is just the cheap stuff from the big box store again. Get it in a small bottle because it does go off. But this will stick almost anything to almost anything. It does make a bit of a mess, so do be careful of that. But it'll stick woods, plastics, metals, polyurethane glue. It dries relatively quickly and it dries waterproof, which is very important too. If you can only get one glue for handyman type stuff, then polyurethane glue is my go-to. Obviously, if you're doing sealants and that's for specialized jobs. But these 2 things are always in the kit as consumables. I think this size clamp, it's about the 1 foot 30 centimeter bar clamp, and this style of clamp is the one that you're going to go to most often. Again, bigger jobs might need specialty clamps, but for your everyday kit, these are your best extra set of hands because they work one-handed and they are reversible into spreaders as well to help you lift up things too. I've got 4 of them. That might be overkill. 2 get you out of most situations. As I said, this is not for construction jobs. This is for everyday DIY. And now we get basically to the last of the non-powered tools, and I don't have a powered sander in here. A sanding block with a few different grits of sandpaper will get you done with most of your DIY type stuff. You don't need a lot of powered options. In fact, I only have 2 and their associated accessories. And they may not be the ones that you think. Let's take a look. Okay, well, the first one is exactly what you think. Because you're not a handyman unless you have a drill. You do not need a trade level brand. I do this semi-professionally, and so I've had this particular drill for 8 years, and it has been bomb-proof so far. It's also about $350, whereas you can get something perfectly adequate for well under $100 that will do basically the same job. You don't need to buy the colored brand stuff unless you just like to have nice things. I said, these will last forever. Your Ryobi and your Zito will not, but if you're just doing this for yourself, then there's absolutely nothing wrong with the cheaper brands. I'll put a link to a video where I discuss this in more detail. If Festool makes you happy, knock yourself out. but then you can probably afford to pay someone to do this stuff for you. Right, so with the drill, that of course comes along with some necessary attachments. Firstly, 1 battery per tool. You probably will not run out of power doing your average little job, but there is nothing wrong with having multiple batteries because it just saves jumping from tool to tool. A box of screws and washers and things. You can just get, and I started off with a miscellaneous hardware pack. They're going to get you through most of the jobs you need to do. Again, specialty job, specialty hardware. But just today, I ran into a problem where I needed some washers that I wouldn't otherwise have thought I did. But because I had my little screw kit with me, then I got out of that really easily. Always key, remember to restock it afterwards. Wall plugs, something else, always have. Hex head screws, for joining big things to other big things. Regular wood screws and, you know, just the odds and ends that are going to attach things to other things, particularly the wall plugs. They're the ones that are going to get used all the time. Okay, we have our drill. It's useless without bits. This is my drill driver kit. Again, it's a Makita. Again, it was kind of expensive for what it is. You can get much cheaper options, but it has all of the different little star for your hex keys, flatheads, Phillips heads, even got your square drive, which again, I needed today. I've got ones in here that are used for bolt heads as well. These are relatively inexpensive if you get the no-name ones, and having the variety just means you're not searching for that specific tool, and when they wear out or get lost, you can get another one. Always have a nice set of dryer bits with you. Drill bits. You do not need one this big. Again, I get sort of the higher end stuff. Having said that, this was maybe $50. Yes, that is a lot more expensive than some, and you want to get one if you can that has regular twist bits and the masonry bits. My masonry bits are actually separately. I'll grab one, hang on. This will come in again in a second, but what you want for your even basic kit are the spade masonry bits. You're never going to be able to see that. I'll show a close-up later on. Because you inevitably are going to be going into bricks or concrete or something, and a regular drill bit just won't do it. Here we go. Here was my first cheap set of masonry bits. They're the ones with the spade type. They say masonry on them. They are going to be used for bricks and mortar, whereas your regular twist bits are only good for plastic, wood, and metals. You will need both, just probably not that many. You can start with the smaller kits. Some kits have both these type in there, and they would be a fantastic place to begin. Oops, we got one of the hand tools. Stanley knife, box cutter. Always very, very handy to have on hand too. And last but not least, you thought I was going to get a circular saw. Nope. As a beginner DIYer, I think there is a better option. The jigsaw. Again, this is an expensive Makita one. You can get one that doesn't have a battery in it. Drill, do not get a corded drill. Go with a battery drill. But a battery-powered jigsaw is more expensive than a corded one. So you can just grab that. Pick yourself up a set of blades and you'll be able to go through metal, plastic, and wood. They don't cut a straight line as good as a circular saw, but I think that jigsaws are generally less scary to a new person than a circular saw, particularly if you put googly eyes on the front of them. And they will do most of the jobs a circular saw will do. Maybe not quite as well, but then you can go around corners too. So for the beginner, my only two power tools are the drill and the jigsaw. And that's it for my beginner set. I'll put a tally up of how much you could get this for with, you know, not so necessarily premium brands, but you're probably only looking at a couple of $100 if I had to guess. And this will get you through the vast majority of your handyman DIY type jobs. But when you want to step it up a notch, we're going to intermediate. Let's clear this mess up and add some things on. Forgot one. Basics. Always bring some scrap wood. Holding things up, chocking, drilling, supporting your cuts. These things cost you absolutely nothing and should be in your beginner's kit. In intermediate, let's step up. I still remember buying this at Bunnings and I think it was about $150 and I was thinking at the time, what am I doing? I'm no handyman, I just started this job. Tell you what though, I'm bloody glad I did because unfortunately you cannot get this model anymore. There are replacements but they're mostly plastic. Whereas this one is solid metal. They all do basically the same job, and having a portable workbench is a game changer in terms of stepping things up. Now, they are a bit larger, they are a bit heavier, and I use this in my workshop to this day actually, but even before I built those big workbenches, this is what I just put a piece of MDF on there or an old shelf, and it was my workbench for many, many years. On the job site, saving your back, not having to cut on the ground and having clamping points is just going to make your life a lot easier. Obviously, you don't need this for changing a kitchen sink tap, but if you're going to be doing some construction-y type stuff, outdoors things, or anything involving cutting of wood, then this bench is not very expensive and is a great thing to add to your kit. Back to the smalls. Okay, so our beginner kit is mostly about repairing things that are already there. You've hung a few things on the wall, you've done a few odd jobs around the house, installing little bits and pieces that make your life better and happier place. But now we want to step up to a bit more experienced jobs where you may be adding more or really taking things away. Firstly, I've got two kits here. Not entirely necessary, but the weight of your tools is going to increase, particularly because we're adding some more power tools. So I use this bag specifically for my power tools, and I've got myself a lovely tote, which I use for my hand tools. Speaking of hand tools, you want them on hand. And nothing says handyman more than a lovely tool belt. Honestly, if this helps you not go back to the car twice in a job, then it has been worth it. And by the way, traditionally, it's worn backwards. Lots of pockets for nails, screws, small tools, measuring and marking equipment. Keep it on you, and your job will be easier, particularly if you are outside. So my goal with the intermediate stage is to add capability and to improve some of the capability that we had with the basics. Mostly we're going to the power tool route here, and again, I actually sort of skipped a lot of the beginners and I bought a nice 9-piece Makita kit, which came with this bag for free and came with nearly all the tools in here. So if you do have the cash up front, you don't have to go to Makita, but you can save some dollars by bundling that up right away. Let's take a look at this side first. Now, before we had a couple of screwdrivers, honestly, you need a variety of them to have the right size for the right job, and these cost next to nothing, so do add those to your list of getting a screwdriver set. Speaking of that, to add to our drill, I have got one of these lovely 90-degree drivers. This one happens to be a Craig because, well, blue, but you can get lots of different brands of them. Aldi sell them. I've got an Aldi one over there. It was perfectly fine for a long time. They are going to be more useful than you realize. I said that the combo square was my favorite tool until I got one of these. This is called a multi-mark. Again, it's a Craig tool and it is very similar to the combo square, but I like this because it is smaller, lighter, and honestly it does what I usually use the combo square for, and that is measuring the depth of things very well, and that can turn 90 degrees to be a true square as well. I find I use that more than actually my traditional combo square, so that is a very lovely addition, and again, not expensive. Socket set. Typically a mechanic's tool more than a handyman's, but you'll be surprised how often you're going to find bolts, and this is much better than just having a couple of shifters in your kit. Going back to the beginners, I've actually got an adapter which allows me to put the sockets onto my drill, so I can use these in the drill, and that has been a small game changer. And the last hand tool I'm adding here is a pocket hole jig. This one is the armor tool, after just saying how good Craig is. This one I've got from TimberCon. They sent that out to me, and it is the best portable little cheap available pocket hole solution that I had seen. It does the measuring and marking for you. Obviously, you're going to need then screws to go along with this. Going down the pocket hole route does add a bit of complexity with clamps and so on, but you can get away with the clamps I had already included without adding the specialties. You just need the specialty screws. This will allow you to repair an awful lot of wooden things to a satisfactory level where you don't want to go that next step and do it properly in inverted commas. The pocket hole jig is, well, in this size, not going to be a very fast way of doing things, but it has gotten me out of many pinches, and it's so tiny and relatively cheap. Having that in your kit is definitely a step up to get pieces of wood sticking to other pieces of wood relatively easily. Another upgrade, we had a little spirit level before, but getting into a bigger one, particularly if you're going to start doing things like hanging gates or anything that needs a bit more of an accurate level where you can get a longer distance over things and also multi-directional distance. Not very expensive, definitely worth adding. And then we come to the power tools. An orbital sander. Any sander really, but orbital sander is inevitably going to be your best friend to save you on the elbow wear and tear using the manuals. This is an impact driver. It is basically only going to drive in screws and remove screws, which is great because it frees up your drill to then do the drilling, and having the two of them may seem like a luxury, but trust me, once you've got the drill driver combination, you will never go back. And this is how we tell we're doing a handyman video and not a woodworking video. An angle grinder with cutting discs and grinding discs. Handyman work, unlike playing with wood in your workshop, you encounter a lot more metal. So having something like this, I mean, you can do stone as well. Make sure you got your respirator on. This is a scarier tool. It is loud, it is powerful, and it will bite if you use it poorly. So hence being included in the intermediate range. But it is also essential. You are not going to be able to get through many handyman jobs until you find you really, really want one of these. I didn't even include a hacksaw, which I suppose you could put into your beginner's kit because I hate them so much, and I had this from day one. But a hacksaw would be a safer option if this sort of thing scares you. But trust me, once you've got one, watch a few videos, learn how to use it properly, and it is a great piece of kit to have. And the last one, which you might have been expecting before, but I switched out for the jigsaw, is the construction circular saw. You only need a small one. Again, you do not need a trade tool brand, but if you're going to get into the construction DIY side of things, where you are making gates, fixing fences, anything to do with woodwork, and you'll quickly hit the limitations of a jigsaw in terms of being able to cut a straight line. And that's where this comes in. It will become your workhorse at an intermediate level. Having said that, two things that can make this an absolute powerhouse of a tool are a speed square, or in this case, again, I have the Team Blue variety in both the old and new one. I actually prefer the old one. This here, you butt up against your wood, and it allows you to have a nice straight edge to cut things off at 90 degrees. And if you want to go with the grain of the wood, this is a Craig Rip Cut designed for breaking down large sheet goods. For me, most often in the car park of Bunnings after I bought some plywood and I want to fit into the car. I have several videos on using this tool, which I will link to explain it a little bit better. But paired with your circular saw and the crosscut, this little combo here, and a drill driver and a sander, and you can build almost anything. Not even exaggerating. I really do love this thing, and in fact I think Craig have just released a brand new version, which I'd be keen to get my hands on, but this is 5 years old and it doesn't need replacing by any means. It's been a fantastic tool. Okay, so now we're at the stage where we can repair things, remove things, and hopefully build a few things too. But what about the luxury end of the market? Let's go to the advanced stage for the things that are going to make your life easier, but you definitely don't need and most definitely cost a lot of money. Let's go. So now you've maybe built a gate, you've fixed a dunny that's been broken because that was a really fun job that needed to be done, took some figuring out. You've rehung a door and you've really gotten yourself into this whole DIY game. You've probably also done some painting, but again, I'm not going to cover that today. You want to splash out on some tools that are going to make your life easier. None of these things are really necessary. You could have done all of them before with the existing intermediate and beginner's kit. But when we go advanced, we're just making time work for us more, and let's face it, cash work for us more by investing in some better tools. What have we got here on the table? The tool I wish I bought earlier. They're not cheap, but again, you can get cheaper brands. Your little hammer drill will work for the most part. Your regular drill should have a hammer setting if it's worth anything, and it will go through bricks nicely. This will go through them like butter. It is an SDS rotary hammer drill. You, of course, then also need to get yourself a set of bits, which doesn't need to be as extensive as these, but these ones are fantastic. And you'll notice here, it also comes with some demo type stuff for getting old bits of mortar off brick walls and chipping away at tiles, that sort of gear. The difference between this and a combi hammer drill like the one we had earlier cannot be understated. Yes, they are a very specialized tool. Yes, they really only do one job, but they do that job very, very, very well. Well, two jobs: demolition and drilling holes in very hard materials. So when you're ready to stop swearing and having to put your shoulder into your hammer drill, then get an SDS rotary and those problems will be solved. Going completely other end of the spectrum, a block plane. Yes, you don't have to be a hand tool guy, and yes, you could perhaps get a power plane or other things, but the number of uses I get out of a small, simple block plane, I would take this over my power plane almost any day. I mean, it has its uses, but it's a construction tool. DIY, you don't find I need it that particularly often. Breaking off sharp edges today, literally, I was shaking down a door with this thing, making things that almost fit. There is almost no easier tool than having a block plane. You can do a similar thing with a sander and coarse grit sandpaper, but that can take a long time, and this is a real pleasure to use. I, of course, have got the Melbourne Tool Company one. You can get lots of different ones from your hardware store too. The biggest challenge you'll have, and the thing to consider before adding a block plane, as useful as they are, is you do need to then sharpen it. And then, of course, back home, you need to go into having the correct kit and maintaining and servicing it and keeping the thing working. But if you are really serious about this game and you've gotten this far, then a block plane is a brilliant thing to add to your DIY kit. This one's kind of dependent on having yourself the mobile workbench from the intermediates, but this style of hold down clamps, there are lots of different ones available. Again, you'll spot a theme with my particular workshop. But these hold down clamps, when you are starting to build bigger things and investing in more complex projects, they slide into the T-track, which I also have on my regular workbench, on your mobile workbench, and they are going to be that step up from the little Irwin quick grips. You could, of course, also add more clamps at this stage. You can never have enough clamps, of course, but I do find they tend to be project specific. If you are going to look at extending your DIY kit, hang on a second. Then after the little quick grip clamps, the next one I'd look at are pipe clamps. Not really a DIY thing, to be honest. I do find I use them sometimes, but I'm trying to keep a differentiation here between my woodworking workshop and things I actually use to fix things. You can, of course, get these on a much shorter pole. They can apply a butt ton of pressure, and they can get you out of some situations, but they're very much a maybe tool, and definitely in the advanced pile, if that. But if I was going to go around clamps other than the quick grips, then the pipe clamps are the ones I would go for. This is one of my favorite tools. Yes, it is a luxury, and I like to clean up after I'm doing jobs, and the amount of sawdust and other debris that you generate that sometimes you just need to get out of the way quickly, I really, really, really like this thing, and it comes to all the jobs with me, along with the opposite end. A vacuum cleaner. This little portable one by Makin is HEPA. It is great. I can hook it up to my sander when I'm doing sanding indoors. But mostly, if you're doing DIY work, you're usually creating a mess, and you're often in an area like indoors where you don't want there to be a mess, and you want to be able to fix it up quickly. So if you're getting paid for the job, really, one of the things is leaving the site better than you found it. And in your own house, well, hopefully you want to keep that clean too. So blower and sucker, fantastic top-end tools to be adding. This is a neat little one I only got recently, and that probably speaks to the fact of you don't actually need it. When you're tired of the tape measure, digital laser measure. Point to the wall, hit click, and it's 4.3 meters. If it had batteries in it, I was pretending. Again, this is going to depend on the type of job you're doing, job specific, but at the high end of things, you will find you need it very often for measuring all sorts of stuff when you're getting into those bigger projects where you need to know larger dimensions, and a tape measure is simply not practical. Second last, and one of my favorite things, is a Dremel. This claiming clutch for me today. It is a corded version of the Dremel. There are cordless ones too. One of the things I use this very often for is fixing fiddly small things where the big tools are struggling. I had to, for instance, this morning, remove a very old screw from a doorstop. It was completely rusted away. So, little cutting disc on the Dremel was able to create a new slot, and then I could get in there with the power tools and get that screw out. Little bits of sanding, odd fiddly jobs. The Dremel is, again, a luxury tool, but it can do a lot of things that those bigger power tools cannot. And therefore, I always have it on hand when I go on site, because to cut off old screws and doing just those jobs that are incredibly annoying by hand, but can be assisted by the power rotary tool, is a great addition to your kit too. But you need to power it somehow. If you're going to go luxury, they don't come much more luxury than a power bank. This is the Delta 2, and I was given this and I did a whole series of videos on it in order to pay for it. Would I buy one? They are coming down in price, but they are also very, very expensive. I use this a lot, and I could probably justify the purchase cost, but you're looking at like the $1,000 to $2,000 price range. I'll put my affiliate link down below onto this. EcoFlow is a higher end brand, I suppose. There are cheaper ones, but I never want to do anything cheap when it comes to lithium-ion batteries. And this is coming in clutch when I have got my Dremel or my gurney or some other powered tool. If you've gone not the battery route and gone the plug-in route, then this thing comes in very handy to stop you having to carry around a 40-meter extension cord and hope you can find somewhere to plug it in. For most DIY jobs, the amount of power this has is going to be more than enough to get you through those hour or so that you're out there on the job. And looking at a portable power supply is probably the most luxurious thing that you could do for your DIY career, if that is something that is going to be beneficial to the other tools that you have. All right, last but possibly least, two things which I don't think you need. A router and a multi-tool. You can probably tell by the state of this one, it is nearly brand new. That is because I got it, I love it, it looks really cool, and I've used it precisely once. You could perhaps, if you really went down the multi-tool route where this can cut, this can sand, it can polish, it can do all sorts of things, you could maybe use this to replace things like your sander and your angle grinder. It can do some things which those other cutting tools cannot do well. But for me, because I've gotten the individual tools, I just find I do not use the multi-tool very often. The plunge cuts, I find them rare. Again, if you're doing a lot of plasterboard work, yeah, perhaps maybe this is going to come in. But while they seem to be the DIY's best friend, they are a jack of all trades and a master of none. So you can probably leave this one off your list. And the other one is the router. Again, I wanted to make a clear differentiation between woodworking and fixing. Routers don't fix many problems. They're a creative tool. You can use them in a handyman capacity, but honestly, a set of Forstner bits and your drill and your sanding and other tools can usually do most of the things you would need a router to do, and you've got a chisel there for the small hinges and other things too. Again, I would take this to a job because I have it, but it is a more of an advanced level tool. You do then need all the bits and pieces to go with it as well, and that adds a lot of complications. So not really something that I have as a priority in adding to a DIY kit. Well, that's mine. Of course, I have a whole workshop of tools here, and if I have a specific job, there is a good chance I can look around and find the most suitable tool for it. But what we tried to do today is to build a baseline, that beginner's kit in particular. If you have that, you will be able to find a way to do the vast majority of things, and it won't cost you a fortune. Yes, I have quite a lot of tools, but I have built them up over 8 years now, and also I earn an income off them, so, you know, they do help pay for themselves. As a DIYer at home or someone just starting out, by all means, go for the lower end tools, and if you find you break it but you really love it, then you can step up to another trade-friendly brand that's going to last a lot longer. Now, ironically, the biggest anxiety I have talking to the camera right now is, have I forgotten anything? Remember, what we're trying to do here is build a DIY kit that is going to solve most problems. Every job has its complexities, and every job could have tools that will do things better. But I do believe that with the beginners list that I have attached below, again, go and check it out, you will be able to get through the vast majority of things that the average homeowner is going to need to get those jobs done without necessarily calling in a professional. And then if you really like it, you can step up your tools, step up your skills to the intermediate and advanced level, and honestly have a lot of fun creating and fixing and playing with things around your house, or if you're really brave, around someone else's. Let me know if I missed anything in the comments below that you can't live without in terms of your repair kit, and I'll catch you in the next one. James out.